Hi everyone. Today we will discuss the topic of procurement in the Sahel ERP. Here we have a PDF file open where we have workflow of whole procurement process that start from submit PR and then validate request by the buyer. So whole workflow is there. So let's test this workflow in the ERP to see that how ERP can help us. Here I'm logging with the Sahel ERP and we have to go to the module buying. In buying module we have everything related to the buying that we have to create the supplier group, contact address, everything. We have here the buying process, that material request, purchase order. So before explaining everything we will go step by step that what is material request. So we have to click on the material request, and anyone who want to purchase something or he want to ask for any request, the user have to come over here and he have to ask for a material request. So once the material request, he can choose the transaction date and what is the required date, like when he want this item to be there. So let's say we just choose 28. The purpose of the purchase, we have to select that okay, the purpose of the purchase is a purchase or a material transfer from one branch to other branch, material issue from one branch to other branch, or material issued for the internal use as well, or material used, purpose of the material is to do the manufacturing, so or to provide to the customer. So these are the things. So we will go for the purchase process. mm. Here we can add the scope, that why this item, what is the scope of this item. We can add the specification, what are the specification required. So we just open any type of fields can be open over here. And business requirements, what are the business requirements, we can make table. And it's an open format, so we can do the formatting as well. Then we have technical evaluation criteria, where we can make the table and we can put the technical evaluation, that how much is the weightage and rate of each technical requirement. So after that we have to choose the item. If the item is already there, it will appear over here, or we can create a new item. So some of the items are already there. I will choose one of the item over from here, like we want to purchase a raw material or mobile battery. Let's choose this one. And required by date, the rate is not required to be mentioned, and it can be 0. We can hide these fields as well. So then here the technical evaluation section is there. If we want to add any row, so these new things can be added. See, description, we can write the description, that the description of this item, that early delivery, weightage is 10, and the score we can choose that okay, the score is 5. Maximum remarks, and we can insert okay. So this is added. So here we can add the technical evaluation section of whole product, and we can add the remarks that the weightage of our early delivery is 10 and the score is 5. So these things can be added, and after that we can save. Technical evaluation row 2. Okay, this is extra row, we remove this, and that's it's saved. So now it is saved as a draft. If we have workflow, the person who want to request for material, he can add only the items, and his manager, he can see that okay, the subordinate they want this material, and then they can approve. So the whole workflow can be set in the system. So now we are logging as an admin, so we will submit this request. This request is submitted and it is appearing as a pending. So here we can see other actions which we can do on the material request. If we want to make the purchase order, if we want to request for the quotation, and let's say the next thing is that the buyer, he will get this and he will see the material request which is pending. He can open this material request and he can see that okay, this is the weightage criteria, and he can make the study on this one. More info, he can ask for the status is pending, printing details. The connection is something which is related to this material request, if anything is happen on this material request or not yet. anything like sales order is created, request for quotation is done, so everything is empty. Once we will prepare a supplier quotation or we will do for request quotation, the numbers will appear here like the call center, it is appearing in the call center. So every connection we can found in this one related to this material request. So on this material request, this is the second step, that the validate request. Buyer, he will validate the request, that check if all submittals are clear and procurable. Then the next step is that develop RFQ strategy or plan, background, objective, risk, opportunities, future plan, make buyer analysis, what defines best way, main. So here he will see that request for proposal, and we will go to this one in the pending, and the pending he can ask for the request for quotations. So here he can request for the quotation, he can add that RFQ background, RFQ objective, RFQ risk, RFQ opportunities, future plan, buy make versus buy analysis, bid key points, RFQ scope, and a go to market strategy. So all these things can be added by the supplier. If you want to select the suppliers, like he want to send the RFQ to different suppliers, he can choose the suppliers, like he want to contact this supplier as well, he want to send the RFQ to this supplier as well. So multiple suppliers we can choose over here, and we can send this to the suppliers. We can edit the email template as well, that what is the email template, terms and conditions can be added. So all these things, after adding all these things, he can we already have the items, and if we want to get items from material request, opportunity, possible supplier, these things can be loaded from this one also. So we save this document, and now RFQ is floated to the suppliers. So how the printout will be, so just look into the printout, that these printouts can be customized, and we can do the customization of request for quotation, how it will appear in a PDF format. If we go back to the material request, if you as I told you that this is a material request, on in the connection we can found that request for quotation is already raised against this material request. We go to the details, and I will show you the printout of this material request. This is the material request format which we are using for the customers, and if any type of change is required, we can do any customization related to the material request. So this material request is raised. The next step is to get the quotations uh, from the suppliers. So we go over uh, buying, and here we see request for quotation. Okay, if you see, this is the request which we just created. The date is showing over here, and we can select the filter by date. Okay, I open this one, and then we have all this process. So we can create supplier quotation over here, and we can choose the supplier, that this is the supplier, and let's add the quotation of this supplier, that how much he quoted. So this item is quoted by this supplier is for 100 real, and if you want to apply any tax or other things, we can see validity of the quotation, what is the quotation number provided by the supplier. We can add these things, and validity of the quotation. Save this and submit. Okay, so this is one supplier quotation is done, and then buying, we have request quotation, and then we can create another supplier quotation as well. On this one, the second supplier was selected DP word, so we choose this, and we say that okay, the quotation number is Q2102 and the price is given by this supplier is 150. So any other terms we can save this and submit it, and yes. So this is the way that how the quotations are received, and against this one material request. If we go back to the material request, we can see this material request, and we can see the connections. if you see here now in this connection, we can see one material request for quotation is raised and we received two suppliers quotation on this one. So we can compare the two suppliers quotation, and after that we can see that okay, now we have to issue the purchase order or no. So let's say after the comparison, the next step is to finalize RFP package, manage RFP, open technical bids. Like these are the bids, which is the full status of from receiving requesting an RFP to the getting the bids. So bids custodian, then buyer develop a negotiation strategy as applicable, negotiate with potential winner, buyer, and this whole negotiation step can be done through the emailing of all these things. If we are using, if the supplier is using the portal, we can use this as a comment that we can ask him more on the supplier quotation. These are the two suppliers quotation against one item, and we can see that okay, we can communicate over here also, add a comment and he will reply back to us, because once the supplier, they will be using the supplier portal, so they will get all these comments and they will respond back on this one. So whole process can be done on this one, and the next step is to uh, issue the purchase order. So if we go back to the supplier quotation, we can say that we can issue the purchase order directly from the supplier quotation, or we can go back on the material request and we can issue a purchase order from the material request. So let's create a purchase order. So to create a purchase order, we have to select a supplier. For default supplier, for filter, okay. So this one is the, just go back, this is two quotations. After that, request for quotation, purchase order, supplier quotations. Okay, so we selected this supplier, DP word. We say the price of this supplier is 150, so issue purchase order to them. So now we will issue the purchase order. In the purchase order, we can write any terms and conditions as well, like we can select the accounting dimension, cost center, projects, everything, terms and condition of the project. If we want to add any more info, order status, printing, this is printing setup, which is additional info we can add an internal supplier. So detail things, save, and uh, this is also a workflow process that someone can issue a draft and the other person can approve the draft. So once we submit this and this is done, the purchase order issued, and we can see the printout of this one, which is purchase order, and we are showing that to whom it shipped, is the vendor, and what is the price decided. Everything can be shown over here. So this is one thing, and then this is the connections related to this purchase order, like one material request, one supplier quotation, and this purchase order is linked with the material request. So all these things can be seen over here. So the next step is to receive the material or to pay the payment. If we want to pay the payment in advance, we can just click on this one, like I want to pay him in advance. I say that okay, the payment type is pay. We can choose that okay, get already the purchase order is there, so we can release the invoice payment as per the terms and conditions. Reference number, mode of payment, we can choose the mode of payment is check, cash. Okay, reference number, we can add that test 6 is the reference number, and so this is the way that we pay the payment on the invoice on the purchase order. Here we can, if we go back to the buying, we can see in the material request, this material request status is appearing as ordered now, and in the connection we can see request for quotation, supplier quotation, one purchase order, one cost center. So one purchase order, we go directly to the purchase order. This is the purchase order, and the status of the purchase order is appearing that 100% percentage of billed, that how much we received. So if we open this one, the payment is already created if you can see in the connection. So here we have to create a purchase invoice or payment request. So purchase request, so we can here purchase invoice, let's say purchase receipt is something that we receive the delivery of the items. So first we will create a purchase receipt. The item is created, item is received, on which date item is received, and supplier delivery note. Okay, delivery note DN1. Okay, and we can choose the accepted warehouse, in which warehouse it is accepted. So the quantity is 1, and everything can be checked over here. We can submit. Yes. So now the material purchase receipt is done on this one, and buying. Okay, material purchase orders. This purchase order, as you see, it is appearing is to be billed only. Document has been submitted. If we click on this one, we can see in the connection everything that material purchase receipt is done, payment is done. This is the material request, purchase supplier quotation is there. We can create a purchase invoice. So now after getting all the material delivery note is done, we can create the invoice. This is the details. Here we can put the supplier invoice number IN101, supplier invoice date, whatever the invoice date on which we receive the invoice. And here we can select the accounting dimension, that this is for this cost center and the project, and currency and the pricing structure is also there, and update stock, everything is available over here. So this is save and payment entry is linked again. Check if you should put the advance and this invoice, submit. Yes, and that's it. So it is shown as a unpaid, but we have paid already, so we can do the reconciliation of this and this payment, this invoice against how we can do the reconciliation. Here we have the process, that a payment reconciliation. We can go into the payment reconciliation. Now this is for the receivables. Payment reconciliation. Okay, payment reconciliation. Party type is supplier. Party is Daikin, and here we can get all unreconciled. No unreconciled invoices are there. So accounting. Just go back to the buying. Let me see the purchase invoice. Purchase invoice is showed as unpaid. So how we can link this one? I have to check and will get back to you that what is the process of making the payment, because TP word. Okay, it's a TP word. So go back, this one, accounting, and here we have payment reconciliation, DP word. Party type is DP. Party type is DP word. Okay, DP word, and get unreconciled. So here we get the one reconciled payments, that this is the 150 is the purchase invoice, this is 150 is the payment, and we can allocate this payment to this one and reconciled, and that's it. So it's done. If we go back now in the buying, the purchase invoice, it is shown as a paid. So this is the whole process of procurement. If anything is wanted to be added, we can add the things, like any new documentation is required, so all these things can be added. But the workflow which I shown over here, this is whole workflow can be added in the workflow engine, and the approvals can be done on the basis of the authority matrix. So all things are cleared. If we go back to the buying and we see that material request status, this is the material request is shown as a prepared. So request for quotation is done, 2 suppliers quotation, 1 material receipts is there. So everything is linked with this material request. So I hope everything is clear. If something is not clear, we can discuss. You can reach me anytime. Thank you so much.